through. Someone finally interrupted him.
This is very strange, guys. But please continue what you were saying.
Frode, I'm checking the website program, and it seems the welcome session with you and Vint is actually 35 minutes long.
Yes, but we are not the only ones talking. So there's more welcome, and then we get
okay.
time in.
Got it.
Raphael, is my background the right way around now? Yeah,
Yes.
good, thanks. Good, I can take it off. Good.
But Mark,
Yeah.
we know you're not a robot.
No, so I wonder some days. Right.
This is super strange. So just, I don't know, maybe it's an issue with Zoom actually, because to test, I just went on the web and it was okay. And now I'm uploading a 360 video also to test. And yeah, anyway, okay, we'll just keep going. Right, so back to reality. This page here, I'm sure you guys have some further comments maybe. What should we really say on here?
Well, I think if you're talking about the future, I don't think it's those three topics. I think it's how visual meta can expand and how it can be used in the future. That those three topics seems like an about instead of the future.
The reason I did it like this, and I'm happy to discuss that, is when I met with the organizers, Elko and Owen, they seemed a little concerned, or rather interested in knowing that there were plans for doing more. So this wasn't a one-off.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm thinking of, it's not future development, but it's future implementation or future realization.
Yeah, that first line fits the bill. If I'm intuiting what Raphael's saying, it's like the second is very much in the past, where it came from.
This is,
yeah.
If you wanted a Jobsian touch, you just use the first, but you just have one more thing in the first paragraph. But you're tight on time, so I wouldn't fiddle with it too much, because I think whatever any attempt to actually take anything out is probably going to put stuff in for reasons I think we've already discussed.
No, but
it looks really nice.
This is really useful. The reason, Brendan, I had this was just to put it in context, because Human 19 is part of the conference. So it's actually been presented at the conference. So there is an official paper in Hypertext / Human 19 on this. But maybe I should delete it and not have it here. And then, Mark, if I forget to mention that, maybe you can be a plant in the audience and highlight it.
Yeah.
We're not allowed to do question and answers, but I will say if anyone has any quick points, please make them.
If there are any shills in the audience, please speak up now.
Yes. We can make this better, right? This should maybe be either on a separate page, or the visual meta is completely open and free. Because also when I talked to Elko and Owen, I highlighted that and said, this is not a way for me to sell my software. And they said, well, it's literally written in a non-weird way, or whatever they said. So anybody can use it, of course. They take that as a given.
Good.
Should you open with that, Frode? Like what I'm about to show you is a pilot and it's completely open and free.
That sounds like one of those portentous things opens. What you were about to see is the future.
Yeah. No, because I mean, if
the
idea is trying to introduce visual meta, you're going to tell people like, this is a pilot. We used it in some of the documents for the conference. It's open, it's free, and here's what you can do with it. And then you showcase examples.
Yeah, I mean, one thing to pick up, I don't think you've got time to say, you can't shoehorn more in here, but I think you can try and take as an echo, even if they didn't ask that question, is to make the point that more than it being a pilot, it sort of can and will change. The point the point here is if we don't start, we'll never move forward.
Yeah.
So what this is really doing is it's putting a sort of a marker in, a method to start putting more useful, self-explanatory and cleaner information into documents.
I think the focus only on the code would be better, so that people pay attention to what you're showing instead of reading other things while you're demoing the code.
Yeah. I'd
So
agree.
this should not be on that page.
There might be
No,
a
it-
lead-in page.
Well, I'm just thinking, I have no idea what this is yet. So what I was thinking, maybe, you see, I am listening to you guys, I swear.
In which case, I would make the code smaller so that you can't really read it. So what you can see is it's code, you can't read it, because what you're doing is you're reading the text. If the code's big enough to read, then you will try and read both.
Well, what do you think about the transition to this? And then I read that, and then I click for that to go away, and then we look at this.
If you got time.
Because
Yeah, because it might be something that you just say. Or
yeah, it does need to be there.
I'd mentioned that it's easy to implement and that a formal grammar is under development.
yeah, and usually for things like that, you don't need a sentence, you need the words. You can just have open, like free, and open source. That's it.
So clearly you need a member of the audience to ask you, why are you using BibTeX? And then you can say all these good things. Well, it's just a start and it's the best of a bad bunch. But yeah, because it's difficult to just sort of drop into some of this. And the other thing is you won't know. I can guarantee that whatever you set up for, someone on the audience will find another way to misunderstand it. They'll say it's too, how much they're going to cost, despite the fact you say it's free, or they're going to say, why are you using BibTeX and not some other acronym, when that's clearly not the point.
Yeah. And that's confusing, Frode, because you're talking about the future. Is the future going to be free and open, and is it paid and closed right now? There you go.
I don't need to have the heading. You're absolutely right.
There you go.
There was a consistency with the goal and this and this, but
Yeah,
you can't
the
even see
titles.
that these are headings.
Yep.
On this, I don't even need to do that. I can just say repeating blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Don't even need that.
Yeah. The less text you have on slides is going to be better, because you have a little bit of.
Oh, the less
little bit
text is
amount of
better
time.
now, is it?
Well, so that people can focus on what you're saying.
Oh, okay.
And the focus is on visual meta, the code itself. So I really like the slides, like up to 39, so that people can see the structure. And I think your narrative is great.
Yeah.
Like the explanation of the beginning, like you open here, you close here, and things like that.
Yeah.
But see, for example, that example doesn't need to be there for copy and paste the citation, because it's something else. when time is short, you just focus on one thing.
So the main point of this slide, if I get it, is the one about there is really that one other way of thinking of it, these are the only two tools at the moment that are visual meta natively understand visual meta.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to experiment, go grab a copy of these.
Yeah, and
that's the gist of that slide, I think.
After the examples, my train of thought would be, if you would like to see examples or current use cases, visit this website, to see more. And then that kind of closes off.
Yeah.
And you leave that slide up as
This
long as you
slide.
can.
Okay, I see you have your hand up, Peter, but it's because of this view I am sharing screen. It's not so easy, so please feel free to just barge in as well, of course.
Yeah.
I'm in the process of re-implementing my website, and it occurs to me that it'd make a heck of a lot of sense to include a visual meta block at the vision of the web page, at the bottom of the web pages. Now, would Reader be able to recognize that if someone fed Reader a URL that had visual meta at the end of it, or a PDF capture or a web archive? actually probably Web Archive might make the most sense since it's native on the Mac side. But what would happen if I dragged a Web Archive that contained visual meta at the footer of the web page onto Reader? Would Reader be able to pull visual meta out of it?
I don't know now. That doesn't really matter because the idea is really interesting. I think that matters more. That's
I
very,
want to
very
start
interesting.
including visual meta at the bottom of all the pages of the footer.
I think it's a really interesting idea. And I mean, the main thing really, I think, from the discussion we've had thus far is that, if it can be done, it's really good. And the main thing is that the implementation needs to understand that it's one of the things is to detect the visual metas there. And then that to be sort of disconnected or modular from whatever way the visual meta is understood, because that's going to change and it'll get better.
Yeah.
And more richer and more everything. So in other words, probably the only thing we need to worry about at this stage almost is more the modularity of the approach, because anything where the whole thing's hard baked into one module is going to be a do-over for someone in the past, which our future selves will thank us.
Yeah, no, it's a really good and big question. I've been introduced to someone who is on the website of the world, whom I'm meeting next Thursday, which is the day we have our monthly meeting, of course. And I've been wondering what to talk to her about. So this is part of what we could discuss.
Then would it maybe make sense on the future slide to also include for future things, visual meta for the web? It's just like a tagline to
Question mark.
I don't know. It's a matter of overloading people. This is like a document thing now. So if we then go into that as well, yeah, it's hard to.
I think that's true, actually. Thinking of what Fred just said and thinking of having sat in on the meeting, the adoption thing, where basically sitting in a room with the people who are all on side, and we still managed to sort of come up with problems we didn't think we'd had. So, it's just for a lot of people, this is newer than it is for us. And although it's not new in the sense it's particularly challenging, it's still just new, so that it just doesn't feel sort of instantly obvious. So I think there is something to perhaps not pushing too much forward, if only because it's a reason. One of the ways people deal with a bit of overload is just to throw the whole thing overboard, and that's not really what we want at this stage. Though I like the idea of the VM, I must say.
Yeah, no, I do think the website of the world should not be ignored.
and one other thought, should the final slide in the deck have visual meta for the slide deck?
I hate you.
I kind of love that idea.
That's a really cool.
That's a bit provocative.
So that's Freud's evening gone now. Yes.
What would that look like? Would that be the same as?
It would be in current terms, it would probably be an @MISC sort of wrapper, and then it would be title or author, title, organization. A lot of the parsers seem to want. One of the big problems about BibTeX is here it's 2021, and it still doesn't recognize the web exists. So you end up and so many different things. So because there isn't a definition, ostensibly it should be a MISC @MISC, weird other random stuff, which is a fail. But the problem is because no one owns BibTeX, and it's a permissive system, there's no one in a position, as far as I can see, to step forward and sort of sort out the craziness.
I think
that doesn't stop visual meta if it gets going. That doesn't stop us from producing something which is is BibTeX syntax compatible, which for the purposes of visual meta, we say is the bits you want for a web, because the whole BibTeX problem is a chicken egg. It was an attempt to sort of reverse a database out of basically fixed citation slugs, formatted things. And when it was written back in 1994, the web wasn't a certainty, and stuff's moved on a lot since. So whether it's right, you could certainly, you can make a perfectly valid BibTeX thing, probably just give the URL, the author, the organization.
Could I suggest, instead of saying based on BibTeX, how about inspired by BibTeX? And that shows that we're not necessarily strictly BibTeX.
Those three first animations of the page flip, I think you can, those are a little bit distracting, I think, because you're talking about the problem and you want people to focus on the issue and the problem so that you can then provide a solution with Visual Meta.
You're talking about these three?
4, 5, 6.
Yeah, they're distracting.
Yes, page flips. Page flips on the web, they're not as smooth as you see them on your computer.
The actual
seeing them all
transition.
jagged.
Okay.
Yeah, the transition, yeah. They get jagged on the web.
Just basic
Either go
dissolves
with-
then?
Just basic dissolves or even none, so that it's just snappy.
So what are we?
Because transitions on the web are a bane.
Well, they're not on the web, they're in Zoom, but Zoom is not always super fast.
Yeah.
But yeah, I accept that. You're the ones watching this now, so.
Mhm. And what's could you go over your introduction again for the the problem you raised and then the answer to the solution, because that's pretty much the whole thing. The rest are examples and visual settings.
This is the not, well, I don't know if I would call it a problem. Having a kind of a problem statement, I think, would take a long time to go through. So I think it's better to just have a solutions statement for this.
But you're presenting something new, and then if there's no problem, then there's people won't be in the right headspace to accept something new.
I hate you all. Okay.
Mission achieved.
You don't need them. You don't
brave
need.
man, brave man. Yes. Okay.
Jerry has joined us. I didn't even
Yeah,
know that
hello.
until I heard you laughing.
Yeah, so sorry, I couldn't get earlier. I tried, but I thought I really would like to see what's going on. I'm not sure I can make it. Well, see Tuesday. What time is your piece?
It's around 11 a.m. UK time.
Okay, that Tuesday.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
The workshops on Monday should be good. Having a look at the program, I've almost come to the conclusion that the Hypertext conference has left its own conference and joined the workshops, and the conference seems to mainly be Twitterology, and
Oh,
recommend systems.
thanks for the heads up and the tip. Yes. Yeah.
I may be being a bit glass half empty.
No.
but I don't think I'm far off.
I think that plausible. It comes with the territory of publish or perish.
Yeah.
People
Fred,
are,
do you mean interactive? Your slide you put lack interactivity.
We need to write that together. I'm just looking at the two
Okay.
mentions. What do you think is a better phrase?
Isn't it the metadata related instead of, is it complementary information or just any information?
yeah, that's the one I was looking for. But I like that one. Self-knowledge. They don't know who.
Because what do you mean by digital interactivity? When I see that written, I imagine images and videos and animations, because things are interactive, and we're talking about
Interactivity,
content.
content interactivity. Yes.
You're such a child, Raphael, in a good way, over the years. I think
Well-
no. I'm just
He
saying.
is the audience. He is the audience.
Yeah. But what I mean is, the word interactive really has changed meaning over the last few decades.
Mhm.
So I think you are absolutely right to highlight that. Considering the audience, maybe affordances.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yep, good pick.
What happened there? Yeah, I'm sure we can make it better, but that's kind of what we're saying, isn't it?
I think like these are related to self-knowledge, metadata, and avoid being an island. So, active mode.
Frode, what-
Affordance is for all these good things that you actually do.
Frode, what was your main source of frustration to make visual meta?
It was the interactivity. But that was the lack of interactivity and views and stuff. However, the invention of visual meta was the citation stuff, because before visual meta, you could copy BibTeX from a website, paste it into Author, and Author would make that into a citation.
Okay, you're talking about your ecosystem. How does somebody that doesn't use Author or Reader, or what's the common ground in academia that visual meta will solve? What's regular people doing that can be made better with visual meta?
Well,
Well,
it is the views and the citations, right? So it is the
Yes.
interactivity.
There's a lot of friction in citation and viewing additional information. So
Mhm. So
it feels like the center point.
yeah. So from my point of view, it feels like it's a lot of effort and it's hard, and the interfaces don't help. And with visual meta, it's going to make those things easier for people that need those tools. And because where I'm trying to get at, for just so you understand, is that the simplest language and the simplest grievances make for the best ways for people to connect with what you're presenting.
I'm not arguing against that at all. I'm very, very grateful that you're taking the time, guys, to help me drill down on this. I completely agree with that. So when I say I hate you, please run that through translator of appreciation, okay? Okay, so there's two things. We agree on this one is okay, right? The affordances.
Mm-hmm.
The interactions, views, all of that. Because remember, it's only 5 minutes. But this one, so I have written it kind of poetically now, but we probably want to write it clear, don't we? So I'm hoping specifically you, Mark, will say something, because you are Mr. Bibliography.
Sorry, I was working on the BibTeX for your end of your thing. Right, let me go back to window. Come on.
So this bit is agreed, so I'm graying it out.
Yeah. Right, so the bit, I think back to the meeting I had with the ACM, and somebody inevitably said, well, why aren't you using acronym? I can't remember, was it XML, XDF, whatever, RDF, XMP, whatever. And our answer was, well, that's hidden in the document. So A, the number of people in the room who would know what RDF even is vanishingly small. And B, you need a specialist tool to extract it. That what the visual meta is getting around, leaving aside the format, the exact format of the visual meta, is it's actually surfacing that content. So it's a bridging thing. We may get to the point where we no longer need to make this visible at the back, because in 10 years time, 1,000 years time, it's all different. But we're trying to basically get the really important data that everyone needs for the citational cycle and for documents to be self-aware and everything else, and not have it hidden where people can't find it.
Mhm.
That's
And making
all.
the process to get that easier.
Yeah. So we've done, so in a sense, we've done something that seems really crazy at the outset, which is, in a sense, we've added something extra that seems to be written in old-fashioned format. Why? Because A, you can see it, and B, is it so happens that BibTeX is best of a bad bunch. It really would have been that or RIF, which is even less readable to a non-technical person.
So
Which
I've
just
added
uses codes.
this list of benefits to the end here. Thank you, Mark. You made me do that. But it doesn't really go into the problem description. Excuse me, this one.
Mm-hmm.
So the first problem is that they lack digital affordances. But this whole, we can't just say they lack metadata. They lack metadata. So can you guys help find something better to say?
Well, the issue is that, I mean, arguably they do have metadata, but it's just not accessible. It, it is not offered as an affordance by the document.
How about this?
How about lack accessible metadata?
Yeah, accessible metadata. Yeah.
Accessible.
Because someone can ask you about that, and that's easily explained. So you're not talking about, yes, whether some WYSI tool can do it. You're talking about, can most people do it? Because part of the problem here is you've got a globe of authors, mashing the keypad in Word, sending something in to be published, and it's just sand upon sand upon sand at the bottom of all our sort of citation trees. And it's no one's ill intent. It's just bad tools, bad practice, and a lack of time. So this is one of the things we're resolving. Basically, we care so you don't have to.
Oh, I like that turn of phrase, Mark. Put that in exactly as he said it.
Yeah, I mean,
That's a quote, Fred.
That might be a bit inflammatory, but I mean, in a sense, that actually is the gist of it. And that's not my phrase, that's dredged from somewhere. I'm sure that's someone's advertising slogan from somewhere in the few decades past. I think one of the issues that's often really hard to get across when you're in a fairly technical gathering is just how hard most of this stuff is to everyone who isn't in that room.
yeah.
But they are part of the problem space. So saying, "Ooh, woo, more code," is fine, but that doesn't necessarily move us forward of itself.
So, problem addressed. Academic PDF papers. Do I need the word papers?
No, PDF, smaller, yeah.
Lack digital affordances and lack accessible data metadata, which could make
You don't have to
citation.
have lack twice. That just to save your word, you could take the second instance out. Lack digital affordances and accessible metadata.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Fantastic.
this is framed in terms of like you have the problem up front and then it's almost like the solution at the end of that. Is that how you want to phrase the problem statement?
What?
So which could make citations quicker and more robust? That's almost like the dichotomy of
Yeah, that's true.
lacking digital affordances. So it doesn't fit the sentence structure as is.
See, my dream would be that in the future, we can have.
Because that's that's the solution already. That's part of the solution. I agree.
Yeah, so my dream would be that in the future, we'll have the actual content of the bulk visual meta sitting on IPFS and on, say, a conference paper where you don't necessarily have the space to put all the visual meta physically. You could just have the visual meta ID and feed the visual meta ID into a resolver service, and get the full visual meta back out in machine readable form directly to bypass the need to scan things in.
I mean, another thing that might, well, for some of the older members of the audience, that might make sense is say, well, think of it like the advent of CSS and actually taking the structure out of the page. You know, time was you hammered away in all uppercase tags and you shimmed together something that magically a browser showed as a page. And then people rightly said, well, actually, we don't need to have font tags always, you know, and so you, in other words, the documents we should be seeing at the end should be the render layer of the information underneath. At the moment, what we're seeing is we're seeing a hard-coded render layer with sort of some, none, or some metadata attached to it.
Yeah.
And that's part of what we're flipping around. But that's perhaps a slightly complicated description to someone who hasn't got their nose in the problem.
Guys, I have a hard break in 5 minutes.
Yep.
Embarrassingly and horribly. I think we got it. I think that's.
If you want to, you know, record a rehearsal and then, you know, send it over via email to us, we can continue inputs as well.
Yeah, thank
And then
you.
that way you.
Sorry, Raphael, please continue. I'm sorry.
No, and then that way, you know, you can both time how long you've been doing, and you can, once you record yourself presenting, we can note down the points, maybe a word pronunciation or transition, you know, you start to notice those things. So I would highly suggest that you do a couple of recordings of yourself rehearsing.
Are you going to keep a recording? I'd recommend on the grounds that if you make a recording, you won't have to use it. Otherwise, Murphy's law dictates that on come Monday, that you know the internet will disappear where you are. I mean, that's what I'm going to do for my Presento. It won't be great, and I know that it won't look like the magical picture in my mind of the demo, but it's just something, because with all the work you've put into this, it would be a nightmare if.
You could even be a musical fraud like Hamilton.
Oh, sorry, somebody said Hamilton. What?
And don't
It was a great
forget
musical.
jazz hands at the end. Yes, always a winner.
Yeah, but by the way, talking of Hamilton, in the car today, I was actually thinking the reason I love Hamilton is this poetic thing about writing a system and a better world into existence.
Yeah,
Which is what they tried to do with America. Let's not talk politics and see where they are. But that was the guts of it. And what are we doing here? With Visual Meta, we're trying to do exactly the same thing. We're trying to write a better world into existence. So
that is true.
So okay, Brendan, this is in reflection of you. The problem: academic PDFs lack digital affordances and accessible metadata for citing. Aim: give academic PDFs metadata to enable rich interaction and views, as well as metadata for robust citing. Sorry, there was a lot of as well as views, as well as we don't need to say metadata twice. To enable rich interaction, comma, views and robust citing, right? And then we do approach, adding a few words in an appendix. Because this is really key. When they watch this, I know I try to hammer it over the next few slides. It's on the page, but still it looks like code, so people may still not get that it's literally on this last page.
Yeah, that flows pretty well.
it's difficult because, you know, I mean, it's not till someone showed you a screen of RDF, you know, and people are running screaming from the room that you realize that this is actually mild by comparison. So I put in the sidebar for Freud. The values inside the curly brackets will be wrong, but broadly that if you filled all the appropriate bits in there, and you can change the local ID, but if you wanted to have a go at doing a self-cite, that probably is, you know.
That's nice. I like that. I like closing with that.
Love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, huh? Oh, the
Yeah.
site here.
Yeah. So you can change the local ID and all the values inside the curly brackets.
Just give it to me. Have you give it to me in
It's
chat?
in the sidebar.
It's in the chat. It's in the chat.
It's in the sidebar. Yeah.
Frode, I know you have to go, but there is an amazing way of saying this. Easy to emulate, compelling to use. I like that.
Oh, where's that from?
That's Jerry Wikalski. I don't know exact. No, he actually said compelling to do. I like use, but do is perhaps even better. Jerry Mikalski, I don't know. I didn't have a chance to ask him, where did you get that from? Because
you could
maybe
you could
from
end
his mind, but
you could end with a blue pill and a red pill.
yes, exactly. No, I just love that phrasing. It's just such a good one. I'm selling Hindi Wiki with that one, you know.
And wrap that last bit in the visual meta self-citation.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'll that's me being silly. I mean, on one level, on one level it doesn't matter, but I know what Peter's saying. On another level, it does. So, one moment. Third time lucky.
Yuri, can you repeat the magic?
Is easy to emulate, compelling to do.
I may tweak it slightly, but I do like it
Yeah.
in principle very
Yeah,
much.
yeah. No, I'm not forcing it. I just
No, but no, it's hugely inspirational.
yeah.
Just wondering
that's
how
it.
to make
Work on it. I'm sure you can come up with even better. Yes, improve on it. It's a really good. This is really the wiki. You know, that's what the wiki was originally, and you do want to be emulated in a sense, adopted and all that stuff. Yes.
You'll be fine as long as you don't have any programming language geeks in the room who will then immediately think there's a visual meta emulator that they need to implement in their languages.
Okay. Yes. Yes. Yeah. You're quite right. I didn't think of that one.
I was sort of thinking, yeah, it needs to be simple enough that you could sell this door to door.
Well, Peter, don't worry. I think half of the programmers wouldn't understand the word emulate, so we are safe. No idea what that is. You know, it's not needed for writing web pages.
Yes. And for the recording, I'd state that I actually have a profound respect for people who have a skill that I don't, to wit programming. It's just that, you know, sometimes things get out of skew with the rest of humanity.
No, I'm not blaming them.
I'd be happy to tutor you in at any time, Mark.
Bro, you're gonna be late.
I know, but this is just so golden.
Yeah, Peter, I'll put that in my diary for, you know, Wimbledon's men's finals as well. I fear the ship may have sailed, but I'm always happy to have a go.
Nothing strange with my. Okay, I'll tweak this, but I don't need that page anymore. So this is the last page should be this. We need the whoops.
Fred, did you get the third version? What Peter said is just wrap that last curly bracket so it's on its own line, and it just makes. I mean, or you can also all the keys between the first and the last line. If you want, you can put a little white space in front just to make it a little sexier. But the parser doesn't care.
Frode, you're writing like you're running out of time, Frode.
Wrapped around it.
Raphael, I'll have to DM you my emotions to that comment. Yes. For you, have you seen the second half yet?
Yes, I finished watching it.
What do you think?
It's amazing. It doesn't feel like United States.
No, it doesn't. It feels, I mean, it's easy to criticize America because America's big and bold. And right now with Biden and Afghanistan, it's just absolutely sickening. But, you know, I'm sitting here in Norway. We've got problems. Britain, we have
But I'm sure, I mean, they would be disappointed with how things turned out, with what they were planning in the beginning. That's what I mean.
They would, but you know what? We'll have to fix it. Right? And there are many ways to do that. I honestly think that by us working in many ways on how we communicate is part of that, right? And otherwise, I would be just too depressed to do anything. But, you know, we have shit governments all over the planet in different ways.
Yeah.
And it's just our job to change it, right? I mean, the story of Hamilton coming from basically nothing and making it what it was is amazing. What excuses do we have? Huh? Nothing. Anyway, have a good weekend. I look forward to Monday.
You too.
We'll do another
You
chat
too.
on this, I'm sure, and then Tuesday we'll change the planet, right?
Yes.
And
Cheers,
so
guys. It's been
will you-
great, Frode.
Will you have the chat still, Frode, when you finish it, or do you want to just take? Well, I put the visual meta suggestion in for
Oh, you did?
Yeah, so it's in the chat. So Peter suggested wrapping the last line. And then I'd given you a version with you. I put 3 spaces in front of every key, and I then noticed that the URL date didn't. That titivation doesn't matter to anything parsing BibTeX, but if you care about the typographical aspect,
We don't also need to add the visual meta start, visual meta end. Anyway, gotta go, guys. Thank you very, 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 very much.
Bye bye, Frode.
Bye.
Great.
Yeah, Fred.
Bye-bye.
Have a good weekend.
You too.